that it quickly stops being a fantasy and starts getting real. And when the smoke clears, you want to show off those victories with a real prize.
I mean, a really real prize.
Nobody does that like Fantasy Jocks. The crew over at Fantasy Jocks have beautiful, high-quality, and heavy-duty championship belts, rings, trophies, and so much more for all your fantasy sports needs. There's literally only one place to go. FantasyJocks.com.
Hello, Cleveland. This is WWE Hall of Famer Mick Foley, and you are listening to the Sports Fix. Yeah.
Welcome back to the Sports Fix, live across the Sports Fix Radio Network. J-Rock back with you guys. We are rolling on here, getting off and running. J-Rock back with you. And, of course, Jeff Gorman from Indians and Browns, 101.com, getting ready to join us here in a few minutes. We'll talk a little Tribe, talk a little Browns, Ray Farmer, Mike Pettine, Ray Farmer this morning. He said, absolutely not. Jimmy Haslam did not make us draft Johnny Manziel. I'm telling you, we'll get into it here in just a minute, man. But there was some interesting stuff that came from him. I had to retweet it. Somebody's like, Ray Farmer's a cliche machine. I'm like, man, I know, man. But it's funny. We'll get into it. I'm not even going to start now. We'll get into that in a minute with Jeff Gorman. We'll talk some Indians here, some Browns, Farmer and Pettine, and all of that. Going back real quick to we were talking Cavs before the break. And I'm joking with the guys over in the chat room there about Mike Brown. At least he'd have these cats out there playing. Look, you guys know, I know there's some of you that didn't like him, but a lot of you did. We've talked about this, a lot of us that talk off the air, and I was a Mike Brown guy. I liked him. I mean, I get it with his offense, but they look at some of the cats they had playing the offense that he was. I'm just saying, he didn't exactly have. But he didn't have the worst squad either. He should have done better. But regardless, he actually got Kyrie playing a little defense from time to time. But anyways, regardless, he's under contract for like the next decade. So if we're going to be paying him anyway, just bring him in as a special consultant, like a defensive consultant. Don't even tell anybody. Just sneak him into practice and just have him convince LeBron and those guys to start playing some defense, man. I don't know. I'm joking, but he would. Mike Brown at least would have them cats out there playing defense. Anyways, but hey, we had to move on from Mike Brown so quickly. It is what it is. I like Blatt. Be honest with you, I did, but again, he doesn't play defense. He doesn't believe in defense. He believes in outscoring the other team. Mike Brown believes in winning the game 50-49, which I'm cool with. But, hey, look, Ray Farmer and Mike Pettine don't believe in quarterbacks and wide receivers either. So, while I do believe you can win in the NFL with just an adequate quarterback, I mean, I do think that you can win on a running game and you can win on a defense, but you better have a special defense and you better have a great offensive line. I mean, but you can, but that's the reason why most teams can't, because it's got to be special to be able to do it. But, I mean, hell, in an offensive league, one guy says we don't need a quarterback. Another guy says we don't need extra special wide receivers. So, whatever. We don't need to play defense either. I don't know. But we were just having some fun about Mike Brown there in the chat room. We'll see what happens. A lot of time to talk about it. That's for sure. And you know what? Look at the timing. We talked about this with the Indians and the Browns, the way the end of one season overlaps with the other, how when the Tribe's having a bad season, it's a good thing that the Browns are starting to get going again because it takes the heat off of them a little bit. And then when one goes away, the other one opens up. When the Browns are having a bad start and the Indians are ending strong, when that season, all of a sudden people pay more attention. Same thing here, man. Brown season ending means people need something to talk about 24 hours a day, which means if they're already targeting the Cavs' problems, they could now they've got more time on their hands to dig up some more problems for the Cavs. So if they think the media is causing them problems now, brother, you ain't seen nothing yet. And I'm just curious. The media was pretty out to get the Heatles down there, too, for a couple of years, and they still managed to be successful. Despite the media and their evil stories and their evil made-up stories for 4 years, the Heatles were somehow able to ignore the media. So I don't know if we can totally blame the media for these made-up problems. But anyways, we'll talk more about that as the Cavs continue. I'll preview that game later. We're going to talk some Tribe and some Browns, as I jokingly say, Farmer and Pettine. Hey, man, we don't need no stinking wide receivers and quarterbacks, man. And I understand where they're coming from because of the type of team that they're trying to build. But we'll talk about that here with Jeff Gorman from IndiansandBrowns101.com. And I want to talk to you. I'm J-Rock. Who are you? Let me know and hit me up. Facebook and Twitter. Facebook.com/TheSportsFix. Tweet with us at TheSportsFixCLE. Email us, TheSportsFix@AOL.com. I'm going to the phones right now. Let's get Jeff Gorman in on this conversation. First off, of course, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, all of that. Jeff Gorman, how you doing and how was your holidays?
It was wonderful, J-Rock. Thanks very much. You know, I've had a great year with you talking about the Indians and the Browns and even the Olympics, and I'm thinking about the new year, and, I think maybe my New Year's resolution might be to take a page out of what you just said Mike Brown should do and get hired by somebody as a secret consultant.
You know, I'm telling you, man, they don't even got to tell the media. The evil media doesn't even need to know. Sneak Mike Brown in, sneak him in the back door to practice. Get one of those, get one of those Verajao wigs, put it on him so that, we kind of disguise him a little bit, and nobody will even, they'll be like, who's that Rastafarian over there talking to the Cavaliers in a three-piece suit? And then David Griffin can just, nothing to see here, move along. That's just a homeless guy. We saw him outside, and he told us, Cleveland needs defense. And we said, you know what? This homeless guy says Cleveland needs it. We're going to give it to him.
Or he could just wear a mask. He could be Mr. D. There's this mysterious coach named Mr. D who's it always works to teach us how to play defense. Nobody knows who he is. He's from parts unknown.
It's the old wrestling gimmick. If you don't want to admit your mistake the third time and bring him back, put him under a mask and call him the masked Mr. B. And then he roams the sidelines in a mask, telling guys to play defense, man. But anyways, man, so welcome back, my friend. And it's been interesting last couple of days here, man. And let's see. We'll save the fun stuff for the end. Let's start off slow. Work our way up. Indians, easy to start off slow there. They've been working their way into things this offseason. They made a few moves early, but nothing much. And I know it's frustrating to Indians fans, but it's pretty much kind of, the way you expected things to go. I definitely still think that there's a move or two to come. I think the Indians are going to make a trade or two here, but there's still some big-ticket guys that haven't come off the market, and there's still some free agents that need to drop to bigger teams before that secondary market really settles down in the last 60 to 90 days before spring training gets going.
That's right. It's probably not going to be long because, we're just about the beginning of the year, and, of course, spring training starts in, the middle of February. So if anything big's going to happen, it's probably going to happen in about the next couple of weeks or so. And I know that it's been a little bit disconcerting. Even if the Indians had finished in first place, it would be kind of, troubling to see how many moves the Tigers and the Royals and the White Sox had made. But considering that we didn't win the division, that, it gives you that fear that, geez, I hope these teams don't just blow right past us. But now it seems like the biggest task for Chris Antonetti is, the best thing he could do, it would be addition by subtraction if he could somehow find a way to make Nick Swisher and his contract disappear. I know that's what he's trying to do. I don't know if he's going to be able to do it. It would really be a Houdini-like move if he could pull that off.
Well, you know what? I wasn't even going to go in that direction at first with this conversation. I was going to hit that Swisher rumor a little bit later on, but after that died down a bit. Remember a few weeks ago we were talking about this right after they made the deal for Brandon Moss, and that kind of died down and went away, and most people didn't put a lot of credence into it anyway. But there's been a few national articles in the last week, and I came across a couple of them here in the last few days that continued along that narrative that the Indians have renewed attempts to try to trade Nick Swisher. And the grouping of teams that I've heard that they've had at least preliminary discussions, and I like to always remember what Mike Brandenburg says about these. There's somebody wanted these things to be known, whether it was the owners, whether it was the agents, whether it was somebody wanted these names out there. But Tampa, Toronto, Baltimore, San Diego, who's just been, man, what about San Diego, man?
They
just overhauled that team over there. We haven't really talked about it much because they're on the National League side of things, but man, brother, they have overhauled. Bud Black is the man this year coming. He's like, wow, man, But and then the Brewers and the Cubs. So out of that grouping of a half a dozen teams there, that is who the Indians have renewed talks with. And, I mean, we've talked about it before. The Indians most likely have to eat some of that salary or whatever. But the fact that this is now the second time this offseason that's kind of heated up again, leads me to believe that it's become a priority of the Indians. And I think that they just know that, banking on all of these comebacks is tough. So we're going to bank on a couple of them. But I think right now it's figuring out, and I think he's one of the lesser likely ones to be able to bounce back.
Right, that's true. I think we all don't have a whole lot of confidence that Swisher, if he has to come back with the Indians, is really going to do a great job and hit 25 home runs. I think all of our eyeballs would pop out of our heads if that were to happen. Yeah. It's just a matter of, you talk about all these teams that might be interested in Swisher. The good news is it only takes one. If there's one team out there that likes him and says, you know what, we have a need on our team for his bat, and we might be the ones who can bring this guy back, that might be all it takes. Even if we don't get a great amount in return, even if we don't rip them off or break the bank or, really pull the wool over their eyes, I think just getting them to take Swisher would be pulling the wool over their eyes, and it would really help us out. That way we wouldn't have to trade David Murphy. You can hopefully count on him and Ryan Rayburn to do well. Then you've got Moss with his spot there, and then you have to hope that Kipnis comes back. But really just being able to save that amount of money will give you some more flexibility to sign somebody else, even if it's not for this year, even if it's going into next.
Hold on, Jeff, did you just say something? I get you with the it only takes one, but then you lost me with the next line when you said some team out there is going to go, we need his bat. And I'm like, are we talking to Mexican League teams? I'm just curious. Are we talking to the Mexican League now? That one was, you set yourself up. Wait, never mind. Stop. I've still got another hour of show to go. I cannot have this thing start breaking behind the scenes. Nick Swisher, I'm sorry. We're not even going to start making fun of you here on the show. I appreciate your talent and your beautiful wife, and I hope you guys have a happy new year and a great comeback season. Get off Nick Swisher, because I got to make sure that he doesn't mess up my show. Every time we talk about Nick Swisher, something starts going wrong here with the show. So sorry about that, Nick Swisher. Talk about somebody else, Gorman.
Okay, my apologies, Mr. Swisher. But you never know, because a lot of times the Indians do that kind of thing. They'll look at a guy maybe who didn't have a great year last year, but he did super 2 years ago, and maybe he could bounce back. I mean, the Indians are always seem to operate under that line of thinking. It's because financially they have to. They can't afford people who are just coming off a 30 home run season or a 25 home run season, unless the A's want to gift wrap somebody and send them over like Brandon Moss. But, usually it doesn't work that way. You have to, hope that someone will kind of bounce back, and maybe somebody else will be thinking that way about Mr. NS.
Yeah, absolutely, and I mean, Indians are not clearly the only team dealing with something like that. Like, man, what was I just saw yesterday, and I wanted to mention it during this conversation. Oh, Ryan Howard, man, and how, there's a lot of talk coming out of Philly that they may just cut him outright. They owe that man like $60 million or something like that, and there's no trade market for him at all because of the salary and all of that. Man, we talk about A-Rod and they owe him 90-some million. I feel less caring for him because he created his own problems. But, think about that. I mean, we're sitting here talking about Nick Swisher and owing him $30 million, and can we get somebody to bite on that? Philly's out here trying to get somebody to bite on Ryan Howard, man. And, you look at him last year, he's a guy who definitely, had the power. I mean, he had a couple of 40 plus 50. He had the almost 60 home run season back in the early 2000s. But look at the power drop off from Ryan Howard since he signed that big contract. He's injury prone. He's dropped off to 14, 11 this season, healthy again, but only 23 home runs, which is still a decent amount. But he's only batting .220, and I mean the decline has been quickly coming with the injuries and the age for him, and they still owe that man $60 million. But, I mean, it's just I laugh at the thought that they may just cut him loose. I mean, there's no even value to be gained from that.